Okay, so in this video we are going to look at an example of how to use vector. So vector is like a array, but it's a dynamic array. So the size of the vector could be increased dynamically with time during the execution of the program. You could add more elements, you could remove elements, and so on. So here so in order to use vector, you have to import this package called util in Java. So you need to have import java.util.star. So the util package has several classes, and vector is one of those classes. So we put everything inside a try catch block, and so start with just declaring a vector. So I just say VECA equals new vector. So you could name any name, give any name for this object of class vector. And this is how you add values to the vector. So here I'm adding integer values. So you could say the vector name a dot add 10, then add 15, 25, 35, 45, and so on. Now you could get the size of the vector by calling the size function, and so when you call the vector a dot size of, that will print the size of the vector, the number of elements in the vector. And you can also go to the elements of the vector one by one in a for loop. So you can say for int index I equals 0 and index less than vk dot size index plus plus, which means you go through each element in the vector using this index. Now you can say the vector name dot get index. So the get method basically takes the index that we want to pull out the value. So internally, all these elements that you store are stored as the superclass object. So when you want to retrieve things, you want to typecast into a wrapper class of, because we store it as an int. So we need to kind of use this integer wrapper class as the class to which with which we want to retrieve. So the vector a dot get of index is going to return you the object of superclass object, and you're going to typecast it to an integer, and then when you call the int value method on the integer object, that will get you the scalar value, and then you can print the value. Okay, so it will print 10, 15, 25, 35, 45, and so on. Now if you want to check if a particular integer or element exists in the vector, you can call the contains method and pass the value that you want to check if it exists or not. So the vector a dot contains of 25 is going to return true if 25 is indeed there in the vector, and it is there, so it's going to return true. So it's like a boolean condition. It's going to become true, and we'll go into the if statement and print that vector a contains 25. Now you can also check if something is not there. So vector a contains 30, and we know the vector does not contain 30, so it's going to return false, and not of false is going to be true. So the whole thing is going to evaluate to true. So again you go into the if statement and say vector a does not contain 30. Now we can remove the elements in the vector. You can remove elements at any index you want. So if you say vector a dot remove of 0, it's going to remove the first element in that vector. So if you try to print the contents of the vector after the first removal, actually I'm just printing the size first. So vector a dot size is going to be 1 less than what was the size before, because we removed the first element, and the contents of the vector you can print. So contents of the vector can be printed by just calling by just putting a print a message, and of course you don't need the print message too. Just say vector a, it's going to print the contents of the vector. And so the element that we removed is the first element 10. It's no longer there. So the first element in the vector will now be 15. So when I try to retrieve the first element, I can say vector a again dot get 0. It's going to retrieve the element at index 0 and typecast that to an integer object, and when you say dot int value, it's going to convert that as an integer value. So the first value is now going to be that 15, which is actually was the second element before, but since we removed the first element, 15 is now the first element. Now, so I here showed one way of removing the first element by saying remove and then pass the index value 0. Now, if you want to remove a value that you know for sure exists in the vector, like you know that you retrieve the value which is now the first value in the vector, and you want to remove based on the integer value itself, you can say vector a dot remove new integer of first value. So you have to be careful here, because we cannot just say, since we know that 15 is there, cannot write vector a dot remove 15, because if I say this, it's going to try to remove element at index 15 in the vector. But the vector itself has, after the first element removal, has only 4 elements. So when you say vector a dot remove of 15, it's going to pass an error message, print an error message. So we don't want that. So if you want to remove an element based on its value, then you have to pass it as new integer of first value, or whatever the value that you want to remove. So now if I would try to print the size of the vector, it will be even one less than before, so it will be like 3. Because it was 5 and you remove the first element and then remove this element, which is now the size is going to be 3, and the contents of the vector is going to be now this 25, 35 and 45. Okay, so I'm going to run this program. So I just compile java c vector example.java, and it's going to just print some warning, because vector is kind of considered a class that's not safe to use, but it's really not that. There is some method that has not been updated, so it's still okay. You could use vector for all academic purposes, and there is a class called ArrayList, which is kind of considered recommended version or class to use instead of vector. But for all purposes, vector and ArrayList do the same thing, so it's okay to just go ahead and use vector. Okay, and ArrayList can do, vector can do everything that an ArrayList can also do. Now, so I run this by saying java vector example. So it prints whatever the output that we have asked it to print. So it's going to print the size of the vector. So elements in vector A is 5, and we go to this for loop, and we are printing one by one the values, and then we go to vector A dot contains of 25, and it's going to say vector A contains 25, and vector A does not contain 30, and it's going to go also inside if statement, because vector A contains 30 is going to be false and not of false is true. So it's going to go inside and say vector A does not contain 30, and then you're removing element at index 0, so you're removing 10. So when you say elements in vector A after the first removal, vector A dot size is going to print 4, and it's going to just print 15, 25, 35, 45. And now you figured out what is the first value in the updated vector. It's going to be the first element now, which is 15. So remove the first value by saying vector a dot remove new integer of first value. So it's going to remove 15, and it's going to say the number of elements in vector after the second removal is 3, and the contents of vector after the second removal is going to be 25, 35 and 45. Okay, so this we stop.